Let's nationalise the lot of them. Let's just have it done. Let's get it back in our control. Really? The doctrine was simple. Privatisation will simply make large utilities more efficient, more productive, better value. And capitalism in the UK would boom. British Steel, British Coal, British Airways, British everything, and more besides, water, electricity. Privatise the lot was the plan. It all seemed like a good idea at the time. Many were fed up with the expensive, expansive, always striking, nationalised industries, with a bright new future of privatisation and a new broom sweeping clean. A bright future where investing would be vast, the customer would come first, and the government would have to have little input financially. Current Labour leader Keir Starmer says he will not re-nationalise any of these companies, mostly because he doesn't want to hand over cash to the shareholder. However, he does say that he would like to freeze the price cap, but this will cost billions of pounds. I've already discussed this in an energy video that I made recently. Please check out my channel. I'll leave a link in the description for that video. However, Starmer would need to continue to freeze this price cap, costing more money, because if he didn't, inflation would then simply get out of control. Starmer also pointed out that extricating ourselves from a lot of tricky contracts will cost us a lot of money and a lot of time, and it really isn't just as simple as let's nationalise everything tomorrow. If the government did nationalise the energy industry, they would be able to fix the price themselves, but they would have to do this as a subsidy to the consumer. So why isn't Keir Starmer that keen on nationalising? Is it to keep the far right happy? Labour are pretty aware that they've got a monumental task on their hands if they are to be elected next time round. Nobody really knows when the next election will be. A Tory leader is incoming. Will it be soon, or will it be yet another 2 years? Can we nationalise the railways? There have been various polls recently showing somewhere between 60 and 80% in favour of nationalising the whole industry. But is it that simple? Fares always seem to be rising. Average is around 60%, with some smaller lines going up as much as 245%. Commuter unrest is always there. Delayed trains, overcrowded services. So it seems that these people would rather have it accountable to the taxpayer rather than the shareholder. Under privatisation, rail use has increased hugely. So what's the problem? One of the problems is that although passenger use has increased greatly, so have all the subsidies from the government. Train companies have continually failed to carry the number of passengers that they predict. When they do this, it means that they fail to pay their franchise to the government. So the government again subsidises them out. One of the biggest issues recently was obviously the pandemic, when trains carried 0 passengers. So again, the government bailed them out. Speed of privatisation is one of the reasons that possibly the railways are such a mess. It's fragmented, nothing really seems to fit together, and the competition isn't really there. The East Coast franchise returned to public hands. Virgin Stagecoach, who were running it, failed to make it profitable. The return saw the government prosper by £1 billion. Is competition the problem? The only place where there's been competition was in the bidding war. After the bidding war, train companies simply ran their own section of track. Is the future to see maybe privatised companies sharing track, so there is actually true competition on that bit of railway? So what about the water industry? Shareholders have been paid out £72 billion. Bills have increased 40%. So has the so-called private sector simply allowed this to become a cash cow? If you're a private company, your first concern is making money. Hosepipe bans whilst a fifth of the water is lost through leakage? Really? Is this privatisation that we all wanted? But hang on a minute. Since privatisation, investment has doubled. There are 1/3 the number of leaks. You're 8 times less likely to find raw sewage swanning around your lounge. Just in the rivers and seas instead. What's that all about? So what are all the watchdogs doing? Are they holding to account all these privatised companies? Are the pay packets of the bosses far too high whilst the accountability is just far too low? Some of these companies take on more debt so that they can pay out their shareholders. While shareholders are paid out using this dubious way of doing it, via debt, the government are duped into believing that the water companies need to put their prices up because they've got large debt. Ultimately, the UK privatisation model has not been copied by the rest of the world. Are we looking at all this with rose-tinted glasses? Nationalising everything? Would that really bring everything back to a golden age that perhaps never existed? Could the government take over all the other companies like they did with the East Coast Line and make more profit? Would strikes still happen? Will we support these strikes? Was the East Coast Line nationalisation just a one-off? Could the government actually make it stick with all the other companies? Ultimately, what would happen if workers went on strike after these companies became nationalised? Would the government simply turn around and say, yes, you can have a large pay rise that will keep up with inflation? Because that seems to be the current issue with the railway industry. They're currently striking because their bosses, privatised companies, won't give them the pay rise that they need. Renationalising or nationalising is such a big headache. It's not as simple as let's just do it. There are contracts to be extricated from. There's money to be paid to shareholders. There's money to be paid to private companies. It's not simple, and nobody really knows how this is going to end. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'd love to hear what you think about privatisation and nationalising the industries. In the meantime, there's plenty more content on the channel. Click up here to see the next video.